Hello, everybody. This is Justin. I realized that I'm a dummy and didn't record an intro to what's about to happen. So I just wanted to say up front here, real quick, that I had the pleasure to recently interview Max Mraz, who is the developer of a newly released Steam game called Ocean's Heart. We talk about game development in general, as well as the joys of podcasting, dinosaurs, all kinds of weird stuff. So I hope you enjoy this interview and take it away, me. So yeah, for anyone who isn't me or people that obviously already know you, who are you? And kind of what would you like people to know about you up front?
Yeah, no, that's the classic podcast question. So tell me who you are and what you do. I've heard that so many times because I'm a podcast nerd. But yeah, so I'm Max Mraz. I am an indie game developer. I've been doing this for about 4 years now, and I just put out Ocean's Heart, which is my first release. Well, first release. So it was the first game I started on, and the third game I've released because during the process of making Ocean's Heart, I made two little month-long projects as breaks. I got tired of making a video game, so I took a quick break to make a video game.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So game development is sort of my what I do in this capacity. But I'm a project guy. I do a lot of other things on the side, making music. I've done a podcast in the past. I'm active in my church doing sound stuff there, audio engineering, and have friends and stuff too. So I guess social life. That's how they would know me.
When one could have a social life in the before times.
Yeah, but game development is why you called me. So I made so Ocean's Heart is a game that I just put out, and I've made two other games, Yarntown and Hollow's Eve.
And what are those? I know, but just humor me.
Yeah. So I've been working on Ocean's Heart for about 4 years, and it's a much bigger than I meant it to be Zelda-like. I started out I was like, oh, it'd be cool if I could play my own game on my own TV. That'd be cool. So I started teaching myself how to code to do that, and then it just spiraled out of control, and now it's like a full video game that has been just released on Steam and GOG. And then Yarntown is a sort of like a 2D Zelda-like remake of Bloodborne, of the first area of Central Yarnum. And then Hollow's Eve is a Halloween project game that I put together where you play it's set in the 90s. You play a pumpkin man, and he's come from the spirit world to the human world to rent Jurassic Park because Dracula rented Jurassic Park 2, and he wants to watch the first one before he does that. But you arrive on the night of a curse, and you need to kick a bunch of ghosts and help a teen save his pet lizard.
And then rent Jurassic Park. I assume that's.
Yeah. And then you get Jurassic Park.
Okay.
Yes.
No spoilers.
Yeah.
I figure that's how it ends.
Right? Just ruin the. That's the whole suspense of it, Justin.
I'm sorry.
Does he get it? No. Yeah. You call me dead to rights. He does get Jurassic Park at the end.
So then, obviously, next Halloween you're going to put out a sequel where he gets Jurassic Park 3 and then finds out that it really wasn't worth all the trouble, right?
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah.
Because he's got 2. 3's bad, but he doesn't know that.
Yeah. I honestly, what I remember the most about 3 is the Lego sets of it whenever those came out, because it came out with the Spinosaurus, and I was really into Spinosauruses at that age.
It's a very specific thing to be into.
Well, I mean, everybody's into T-Rexes, so I mean, Stegosauruses are kind of cool, but kind of they're sort of like the Bulbasaur or the tank of dinosaurs, and then T-Rex, that's like your basic dinosaur, and I wanted to be weird. And what was my other pick? Archaeopteryx?
I don't even know what that
is. That's a lame dinosaur.
My wife's favorite dinosaur is the Stegosaurus, so it's still different.
Yeah, I feel like Stegosaurus that's like your a Stegosaurus is like your tank. You've got, I feel like a Brontosaurus is maybe like the mage. T-Rex is obviously I feel like that's like a knight kind of class. Spinosaurus is it's a little bit of a cross between a T-Rex and a Velociraptor, but it's got this big old, it's like a dorsal fin sort of situation, but spiny, I don't know. It's just it was right where I was at in terms of
Okay.
what I wanted in a dinosaur at the age of 9 or whatever.
So it's like a spiky bird dino.
Yeah, a lot like a like similar size, just like halfway between a raptor and a T-Rex, but with like, a badass shark back.
Okay, that sounds pretty cool. I'll give your 9-year-old self some credit.
Thanks.
get it.
Yeah, I'll send you Spinosaurus pics on Discord for a while.
Okay, cool. Right. Anyway, game development. So what I'm hearing is your next game is going to be about dinosaurs.
Not ruled out. I don't have any solid plans yet.
Cool. So speaking of your games, obviously Ocean's Heart is a Zelda-like game. But like, what are your inspirations? Like, what made you want to make this?
Yeah, well, I mean, as you said, obviously Zelda. It's definitely a game for people who loved Zelda and like that sort of game. So I was, as far as like other games that have inspired me, I was outside of like the Zelda franchise, which was sort of like, those were growing up like my absolute favorite games of like, every single, I played as many as I could get my hands on, and they were sort of like the gold standard. But outside of games inspiration is outside of that. I loved The Witcher and played that a little while before I started development, and I loved just the way its side quests always like had a story with a little bit of a surprise or a little bit of a twist. The side quests always were always worth doing because they had some amount of story rather than just being straightforward, and loved sort of the world there, the way that Geralt is just sort of is in no way a chosen one or cares to be a major part of things, but is just sort of like a guy who gets wrapped up in things, and I thought that was fun. Partway through development of Ocean's Heart, my little sister got me to play Bloodborne, and then used that as a gate, and then she bought me Dark Souls, and I was like, well, I gotta play this because you got it for me. And those I really got into those. I love them, and especially the way that they like delivered their lore in terms of like just dropping you little like Lemony Snicket sized bits and pieces of mysteries, and making you figure out the rest. And I thought that was a fun way to do it. I was just like, you still do all that like world building and like figuring out like, oh, who used to live here but before that, and how do they feel about each other, and in what ways did this culture like appropriate the legends of the other culture and twist them to suit their own sort of propaganda and morals, and what are like stories that happened long ago that were just like affected by the legacies of you still get to make all of that, but you should never force that stuff down players' throats. A lot of us don't care. So I thought they did a great balance of like putting in so many of those questions and not giving enough room for them to breathe, like not answering a lot, but just giving you little clues, and it keeps you engaged. Because as soon as you answer every question you have about a mystery, well, you just don't have a mystery anymore. It's just gone. So like the amount of restraint that was in those, I really appreciated it, and that was a big inspiration too. I played Hollow Knight during development, and just like the amount of sheer optional areas what I thought was dope. And judging by the wildly varying playtimes of people who reviewed Ocean's Heart, I'm coming to the conclusion that the majority of the game is optional, which is fun. But then
I mean, yeah, it definitely seems like there's a lot of side content.
There is. It certainly is. I think there's like 11 or 12 main quests and 33 side quests as far as like what is logged. So yeah, I think more than half the game is just optional content. There's a great majority of areas that you don't have to go to. I'm really curious to see if anybody ever like speed runs it and figures out like, okay, what do you have to do? What can you actually skip? Because sometimes I don't remember.
You think this is gonna end up with all the the randomizers and stuff out there? Like it's gonna get its own crazy speedrunning randomizer community?
I don't know about that. I mean, that's the dream. I mean, I hope if it resonates with people on that level, I would love that. But I don't. I hope I don't have the hubris to be like, oh yeah, they're gonna love this one. But hopefully the potential is there.
Well, I think if like Axiom Verge, like that was another basically one man developed game, and like 8 years later or something, he just released an official update for it that brought in an actual randomizer mode in the game. And so it's like
that's
he
cool.
didn't know that was going to happen, but the community ran away with it, so he's like, sure, have it here.
Yeah.
So, you can, after the fact, you can still see that kind of thing.
Yep. Yeah, I'm very much the plan is just to roll with the punches and see how it goes. If it's if people like it and aren't just clambering for more, then like I'm more than happy to move on to the next thing. But if it really resonates with people, then who knows?
Okay. Well, actually, this is actually something I had for later. But while we're on topic, do you see this game, or do you want this game to come to other platforms like Switch?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I think I think Switch is probably the optimal platform to play this game on. Just in terms of like, there's a lot of you can go explore an area, or there's a lot of mini dungeons, or just those the pixel art Zelda, pixel art exploration games feel like they fit well on Switch.
Oh yeah.
Sort of, and it's sort of like how like when Hollow Knight came out on PC, it was still an amazing game. But when it came to Switch is when it was like, that was sort of like, oh, this is the way to play it, to be, on a console or bring it with me. And I would absolutely love Ocean's Heart to get to Switch. It definitely is, from what I understand, it's like a quite a process as far as like, working with Nintendo and getting access to everything. But it's not.
Yeah, I don't know how that worked.
Yeah, they're it's not super open to just like, oh, anybody can develop on Switch, but it's not off the table. It's a possibility, but not one that I can currently say like, oh, for sure we're doing it, or for sure it's not happening. So
I think of past examples, especially with Zelda type games that always do well, like Blossom Tales.
That
absolutely. Like did okay on PC, but I think they put out a number that said they got like 30 times the sale, like the lifetime sales of PC on Switch within the first like 6 months. It was insane.
Yeah, Blossom Tales is it's definitely it definitely has a lot in common with Ocean's Heart in terms of being a lot of we both Castle Pixel and I clearly absolutely love Zelda games, especially the Game Boy ones, and it was what I got from playing their game, and I think I read that they were sort of like in bad shape as a company with the PC release, and that the Switch release really brought them back around. So I was super happy for them, because that game is delightful and charming. The framing device is so cute.
Similar sense of humor too. So I think it would be kind of I think you'd find the same market, which I'm hoping for. But
hey, me too.
Okay, I was just kind of curious.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so it sounds like obviously you have the Zelda inspirations, and then some of the Souls-like stuff, which I definitely noticed with the difficulty level. I won't tell you how many times I died in an hour, but I will admit a good portion of it was because I kept accidentally rolling into enemies instead of slashing at them.
Well, you'll eventually learn the controls. That's a hurdle everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
If you want to know a secret, there actually is. This isn't displayed anywhere in the game, but when I was coding, I just sort of like, every time you die, I increment a counter. There's an exact number of the times you died in your save file.
Oh.
I'm not doing anything with that information, but I am holding it over you. So Justin, just know, I know how many times you just kidding. I don't actually have your save file, but you can find out how many times you died.
Okay. As long as you don't know, I'm fine with that. I know how bad I am at video games. That's where the Zero Score name came from. So, I have kind of a funny question that you don't necessarily have to answer. Were you worried about comparisons to Oceanhorn?
Oh my gosh. So at this point, so this was very late in development when I was like, fudge. So Oceanhorn, when I started developing this game in late 2016, early 2017. And at that point in history, I played Oceanhorn in college. It was just like a fairly small iOS only game. If I remember correctly, it didn't really make a big impact. It was like, I played it and I really enjoyed it. I was like, this is, a solid little homage to Wind Waker, like sort of the top-down Zelda style, but in sort of in 3D. It had some fun ideas with like their robots and their Sky Island and stuff. And then it was, they put that out in what, 2013, 2014 or something. And then there was nothing else as far as I know from the team for many, many years. Many years, I guess. So, 3 or 4 years. It wasn't like they had immediately started working on a sequel. And then so I started working on Ocean's Heart, which I wasn't really even thinking of Oceanhorn at the time. Like, I had played it in college, but sort of, like enjoyed it. It wasn't really like something I was keeping in my mind. And then after I'd been working on Ocean's Heart for years, they go, Corn Fox and Bros announces like Oceanhorn 2, it's coming out, Apple Arcade, it's a big deal. And like with Apple Arcade's launch, it like got a lot of press, and then they brought it to Switch. It is in my wish list, but I haven't played it yet, but it looks amazing. Oh, and now they're releasing Chronos Dungeon, which is another pixel version of it. And I'm just sort of like, oh no, this is some sort of convergent evolution happening right at the same time. A sort of Armageddon Deep Impact situation. And I was just like, oh, this is...
That's actually funny you mentioned that. I think a lot about those, like, movies that came out around the same time that were, like, clearly aping each other.
Yeah, I've read a little bit about it, and I think Armageddon and Deep Impact, they weren't even aware of each other. It just, like, happened that it was just, like, ripe for asteroid disaster movie time. Like disaster movies had been a hit for a long time, with a lot of other ones. Even Jurassic Park is sort of a disaster movie, and that was the same era. So I think that like just the circumstances were right, and I think in this situation too. I was watching someone mentioned in a review or was talking online, and it pointed out that like Wind Waker dropped in like 2006 or something. 2003 maybe, and Zelda Wind Waker was obviously a great game and really formative for a lot of people. And this person pointed out that like, the people that played Wind Waker when they were like at one of, some of ideal Zelda's like ideal target range, when you're like, 12 or 11 or 12, where it makes a huge impact on you. Those people are at, like game developer age now. Yeah. And so they pointed out that like, it kind of makes sense that like I'm sure Corn Fox and Bros and I have I wouldn't be surprised at all if we had pretty similar media consumptions when we were 11 or 12 or that age.
Probably. Yeah. I thought that was funny. Like it's not so much just the names, but like, the same kind of like seafaring adventure.
Yep. Which I mean, obviously obviously that's where the names come from. So it's like, part and parcel. Like, yeah, exactly. I totally get it. I'm just like, we have probably similar influences that led us to similar ideas. And to be fair to them, they got theirs out 10 years, almost 10 years before I did. So. But
I mean, there's so many games out there that have very similar titles, and sometimes the same type of gameplay, and it's just there's only so many words out there. Like,
yep.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah. I think this one is just a very much a case of if you're gonna make a Zelda-like focused on traveling through islands, I can see the ocean being in the name. Not super surprising that both your protagonists are wearing blue because ocean colors. Yeah. But yeah, I feel like quite the coincidence.
All right. Let's see.
Yeah, let's talk about something besides how my bad marketing decisions in naming.
Hey, it's not bad.
Well,
like you said, people do that on purpose sometimes to have you.
Maybe
this isn't a very flattering example, but have you seen like like all the direct-to-DVD movies that are clearly trying to like get people to buy their movie instead of the one that's in theaters, like Transmorphers?
All right, I resent the comparison, Justin.
I said it was a bad example, which is probably when I should stop talking.
Fair. But yeah.
No, I know that we have similar senses of humor, so I figured I could get away with that.
Oh, of course. Yeah, no, I am very hard to offend. Don't worry about it.
Cool. So yeah, anyway, let's get back to the game development side of things. How you say like you're basically a one-man team, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, how do you manage that? Like, That's a lot of things to do. I mean, like, you know, I heard you did like all of the sprite work and the music and like the, you know, obviously you said you learned how to code. Like, that's a lot to manage. Is it kind of nice because you don't have to like, you know, have conflict of interest or whatever with other people? You can just have your vision, or is it kind of challenging? And are there, you know, some areas you like more than others?
Oh, I mean, it is absolutely both. You know, like the fact that like I do really appreciate the fact that like things that are important to me and things that I really want to communicate are just going to be in the game. Like, you know, I don't have to make a case for that or anything. I think whenever you're doing a creative project with another person, like, it's just pretty unlikely that you're both going to have the exact same vision, for better or for worse. Because I think a lot of, you know, great art is created by people who are, you know, ping-ponging off each other and bringing each other to greatness. So like, it's, it's, oh my God, two sides of the same coin, which I hate when people say. You know, it's like, it's an egg cracked, but you're cracking the egg at both ends. Like, you're getting the advantages of like making like the exact game you want, but you're definitely also missing out on what another person can bring that you wouldn't have expected. So and with the same with like doing everything. Like, if I were to, I just know, like, so if I were working with another composer for the music, for example, like when I was going to write the background music for Faikonos Island, which is, if I had gone to someone and was like, hey, I want sort of like a Andalusian cadence, but I want sort of a trap beat underneath, but only played on like traditional sounding instruments, and I need it to also match instrumentation with the entire rest of the game, preferably with some of the same leitmotifs and cues. Like, I'm asking a lot. And I don't, I can just go into, I can just open up Ableton or whatever I'm working in and just do that to myself. Like, I know exactly what I want, and like, that would be a big challenge for me to, because I have such a specific vision in my head for the music or for how I want the pixel art to look. Like, somewhat, there's a little bit of that, like, whenever you have someone do some work for you, if you have, the stronger the picture in your head going in, like, the more inevitably disappointed with something amazing you'll be. Like, someone can do really amazing work and come up with a great take, and there's, unless you're more mature than I am occasionally, like, there's still that little bit of like, if you had a specific picture in your head and it's not that, it's sort of like, ooh, well,
Yeah. It's like, I like what you did with it, but I asked for this.
Yeah, or I mean, more than likely, I didn't ask for it. I was just thinking it in my head, and I was like, obviously it'll come out like this because of what I described. So I guess my point is communication is hard, Justin, and I'm bad at it. But yeah, at the other end, I mean, for sure, it's just there are things that I don't enjoy doing that I've had to do. One thing that I hate so much is making menus. Oh my gosh. Making menus is, to me personally, like, so boring and tedious, but they're so important, and like the UX experience is like critical. And I got really lucky that I that is one of so in the credits of the game, you'll see there are a couple other people listed, and a person who goes by L'Amazing, like llama and amazing.
Nice.
This is another developer who works in the same engine and as me, and Solarus is the engine. Sorry, that was a very scattered sentence. Let me say that like a normal human might if they knew how to talk. So there's another developer called L'Amazing, and they also work in the Solarus engine, which is what I use to make this game. And L'Amazing loves making menus, which I'm just like, why? But God bless you. And so L'Amazing was instrumental. They're a genius and helped me with a lot of the menus. Like the quest log system was all them. L'Amazing was making a quest log system, was like, oh, Ocean's Heart was sort of like, I want to make a quest log system for Ocean's Heart, and that'll sort of be my proof of concept. So now that Ocean's Heart is out, L'Amazing just released this quest log system, all the scripts and how to make it work, onto the Solarus Discord and forums, and everyone else can use it too.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, so happy that they're such a kind-hearted person. Which was because I hate menus so much, Justin. So there definitely are things like that.
Yeah. I want to get back to Solarus because I think that's a really interesting thing. But real quick on the menu topic,
Yeah.
were they responsible for the inventory menu too?
No, the inventory menu was actually I was talking to them at the time. I was just like asking just on the Discord, like asking general questions, because all the developers of Solaris, we have a Discord. I mean, it's just a public Discord, and we're all on there, and we're always asking each other questions and helping each other figure things out.
Mm-hmm.
And I was messaging them and just like talking about like, hey, I ran into this bug. Do you think you like, do you know why this is behaving this way? I don't really want to make an inventory menu. I think at the time I had some like cop out during like the first year or so of development. The only items were sword, bombs, and bow, because those are the 3 buttons, and I didn't want to make an inventory. So I was just like, well, you get 3 items, then each one goes to a button. And Lamazing was like, you can make an inventory menu, and like really encouraged me and was like, just like do the work and figure it out. And it came together with the that inventory, and I think that one was all me, if I'm remembering correctly. Which, I mean, I'm also kind of dumb and forgetful, so I might be misremembering.
Well, Amazing did fantastic work, but I
Absolutely
did want to shout that out specifically because I really like that it's like, the player's pouch, even down to the point where like when you heal.
Oh yeah,
like,
well, the graphics were me.
Yeah, the hearts like are like cross stitches on the pouch. Like, I think that's really cool.
Thank you.
I shouted that out in the gameplay that like I love that little feature because it really, it's kind of an immersive thing,
Yeah, that was fun to do. It is actually modeled exactly off of my bag that I bring to my laptop to work in.
Oh, nice. But yeah, Solarus. So this is probably a lot of people aren't familiar with it. This is basically like it started as a Zelda game maker, right? But it's kind of expanded past that to an extent.
Yeah, it actually started. So if my understanding of the history is correct, it actually started as a Zelda game. So
yes.
You want my full history, and I'll let you edit out what you want. So
well, I've known about it since my brother was, like, he's been working with the Solarus engine probably longer than you have.
Oh, absolutely longer than I have. Yeah, no, these pretty OG.
Like back when it was like when the Solarus game was like a proof of concept. I think he was, because I've been helping him make his fan game for like 7 years or something like that. It started on like RPG Maker, and we were just kind of playing around with it and stuff. So like I know about it.
RPG Maker. So you went through that phase too?
Oh yeah, we both did.
Let's make a Zelda game in RPG Maker phase. Oh, right there with you.
Well, he did that. I didn't do the Zelda game thing. I'm more of an RPG guy.
Okay.
So I wanted to make an actual RPG in RPG Maker, but he had to break the system and try to make Zelda.
Well, I mean, RPG Maker does make RPGs. It does not make Zelda games, and we have all tried to make a Zelda game in there, and it doesn't go well.
Correct. Then he moved to Game Maker, and it was just okay, and now Solarus. But anyway, side tangent. So like I know about the history of it, but I was kind of curious about like, I'm sure you have more insight into like the actual program and how it works and stuff as far as making a game.
Well, I mean, it honestly all, in a way, it did start in RPG Maker because Christopher, the guy who originally is sort of like, the father of the engine, he was making a Zelda fan game in RPG Maker and was like, this is a garbage tool for making this kind of game. Because it makes RPGs, and Zelda is in a lot of ways not. It's not Final Fantasy, it's not turn-based, it's not grid-based. So Christopher sort of made an engine to power his own fan game, The Mystery of Solaris. And my impression of it is just that he is, so attentive to detail and so thoughtful that the engine that he created for this fan game was just so good that it just makes it's very great for making any sort of Zelda-like or action RPG. And since then it's been expanding and generalizing into just more of a general purpose game engine with a focus on action RPGs. So what it is at its core is it's a game engine, and it has a lot of great tools that allow you to make like a Zelda-like, a top-down action game in 2D, or in some cases side view, but it's even more generally applicable. Lamazing, in fact, made a like word game. Have you ever played that game where someone's like, they think of a word and you guess other words and they tell you how many letters it has in common?
No.
Oh, it's like in high school I was dating this girl who went to a Montessori school, and she had a bunch of these like really like clever thinky games, and we would like play them when we were like in the waiting rooms at the DMV or whatever. But yeah, it's like a very clever game, and Lamazing put together one of those. So it's just like a word game, you know, you're just like typing in words and like guessing. It's sort of, I think it might be called Mastermind. But yeah, I think that was called Mastermind or something. But yeah, so it's really just a game engine, and it is specifically great at making action RPGs like Zelda. So like when you go to, but its status as like a Zelda game like a Zelda fan game maker is historically what a lot of people have used it for. So yeah, your brother made Book of Madura, right? And which is a Zelda fan game, one that I've played, and I thought it was great. And there's been a number of other Zelda fan games, and in more recent years, it's been branching out into a lot more people taking it and running it into their going with their own ideas and their own IPs.
Is this the first like retail available game that was developed with it?
Yes, yeah. So Ocean's Heart is the first commercial game. Well, actually, you know what? Technically, I take that back. I released Hollow's Eve. I made the first commercially available games, but Hollow's Eve, my like Halloween side project, released in October and is also $4 on itch.io. So technically, that is the first commercially available game. But Ocean's Heart is the first like big release.
Yeah.
Hollow's Eve was just like a little side project that I threw up on itch, and I think maybe 20 to 40 people have downloaded it. But yeah, Ocean's Heart's the first big Solaris project.
That's really cool. I imagine you've been in contact with Christopher a little bit. I bet he's really like,
oh yeah,
excited to have his engine, validated like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to be using it. But yeah, I mean, the community is pretty small. It's not like a giant community with a ton of developers using it. So I feel like we're all pretty tight, talking on the Discord and asking each other questions and chatting.
Yeah, I love stuff like that. Like, everyone knows like the open source like Unity and Unreal and things like that, but there's so many other small game game engines out there that don't get as much love. And I hope, with retail releases coming out that aren't just Zelda fan games, that maybe Solaris will get some more play now too, because I think it could be a really big deal. I would love more Zelda-like games. So, win-win.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's really what drove me to, make this game is like, I like playing Zelda-like games. Like when I heard about Blossom Tales, boom, I bought that. Whenever there's like someone's like, oh, this is a Zelda clone, then like my ears perk up and I'm like, oh, tell me more. Sounds like something I would like because I love Zelda. Yeah. Like, clone that, please. It was good. Give me more. So, I mean, I think it's a great game formula that I appreciate and want more of. So I'll make more of it. And I hope I can bring sort of my own twists and my own emphases to it.
And that's what's cool is like anytime you kind of create a new genre, it allows people to put their own spin on it. And eventually that becomes its own genre in a way. And so that's how, innovation is bred, is by kind of mimicking something else in a loving way.
Yeah. And you just like they gradually innovate and split apart. Like, oh, for sure.
What was I going to say? Thanks.
Yeah, I got your back, Justin.
Yeah. I totally forgot. Oh, yeah. Well, let me know if you hear about any others, because I'm like this whole year I'm trying to kind of focus on Zelda stuff, so I want to like highlight more Zelda-like games like yours.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
you probably have the inside scoop more than I do, so take things my way.
yeah. If I hear of any, I can send you a list of some of the ones that I've played or are on my wish list. Like off the top of my head, have you some of them that you may not have heard of? Have you heard of Lina's Inception?
No, I don't think so.
So that one, I haven't played it yet, but I do have it down. It was in that big itch.io bundle for racial justice over the summer.
Yeah, I got that.
Oh, well then you have it. So give this a try. It's very much a Zelda-like. It looks and it's built. It is sort of the hook of it is that it's a sort of meta adventure where the hero dies and then you step in to take the place, but it's sort of I know it's very meta. Like you use like the game will like faux glitch, and you'll use that to your advantage. It's also a procedurally generated world, so every run is different. Yeah, it seemed really
that
really
might be why I
fascinating.
skipped over it. I don't usually do roguelikes, but that sounds interesting.
Yeah, I'm very interested in it too. I haven't given it a spin yet. I just haven't had time because I've been making a game.
Right. Because there were a few, like I kind of did like some gameplay videos during that week that was available, just to kind of get it some promotion.
Oh, nice, yeah.
And there was a few Zelda-like games in there that I'll probably, check back in with. But I don't remember that one. But that sounds cool.
Yeah, that one's a little bit of a sleeper. Obviously, we played Blossom Tales. That one was great, adorable. What else have I been playing? Well, I mean, obviously, my game, my other games, Yarntown and Hollow's Eve, are also sort of Zelda-likes.
That's true.
I sort of it's something that I feel that I'm not like. It's something I think about. It's sort of, so I've made at this point 3 sort of Zelda-like games. Like Ocean's Heart is very much, a lot of in its tone and its progressions, a very Zelda-like game. Yarntown is also, definitely a Zelda-like, but it's a sort of a Bloodborne remake, so it leans sort of that way too. Hollow's Eve actually is in its like, sorry, I had a hiccup. And its combat system is a lot like Hyper Light Drifter. And I'm sort of like, at this point, I'm sort of like, I kind of want to just keep focusing on these kind of Zelda-like games for a few years and be like, go deep on them. But I do feel sort of conflicted of like, I'm just staying in this one genre. Like, what do side scrollers have to offer that I don't even know about? Or like, puzzle games or detective games.
Yeah, but like we said, you can branch out in that genre and still try new things without straying too far from what you really like. I mean, you could even introduce side-scrolling elements like Zelda games have before, and so like you can kind of true. Mix up that a little bit, and try things, but still stick to the Zelda formula that you're good at.
Yes. Speaking of side-scrolling, there's a fan game in the works called A Link to the Dream, which is a remake of Link's Awakening with Link to the Past graphics that is in the Solaris engine. Anyway, they're working on a side-scrolling system because Link's Awakening had that, and I'm just sort of waiting for them to like work out all the bugs and be like, can I use it now?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah,
I love those sections. Like, I think they're really
neat.
Yeah,
they're great. And that's one of the great things about open source engines and like communities that are founded upon that is sort of like, we all know that like all of the work each of us are doing is going to be available to help the others. There's no like rule about that necessarily, like with the Solaris engine. Like if you want to make something that's all, you're not going to share it with anyone, like, you can license it that way. But the majority of us, that's like a strong value that we share. We share the sharing value, and we're really into being like, oh, I made this really cool system. Here it is, so you guys can use it. Because like at the end of the day, I want to play more games with it.
Right. It's benefiting everyone. Like, what do you gain from hoarding the good stuff?
Yeah, it's just that like, that view where people see other people's successes as competition that is not like, that's not good for anybody, man. You're not getting much out of that. All you're doing is withholding cool games from people. Right.
Tax the rich. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, dude.
Anyway, well, yeah, true, but this is about game development. So sometimes I wonder if I should say things out loud, and I do anyway. But I still question it. Let's see. Where do we?
What tone am I going to strike with this podcast?
Yeah, exactly. So on kind of the note of the community aspect of the Solaris engine, as a fairly new like one-man developer yourself, what advice do you have for other new and first-time game developers? I know this is another one of those like obvious questions, but I like to ask it.
Yeah, I mean, I will give the exact same advice that any new developer is already hearing of make a really, really small game first. I did not do that, to my detriment. So like my history with development is, so Ocean's Heart is like, I do consider this my first real game. I did like play around with RPG Maker when I was a kid. I tried to put together some games in middle school. Did like a little bit of a Majora's Mask fan game for a year or so in high school until it fizzled out. But
respect.
Ocean's Heart, what I set out to do was maybe like a 3 to 4 hour game 3 to 4 small dungeons, a little overworld, like a couple items, and it ballooned out into, an 8 to 16 hour game and got way out of hand. And I'm as surprised as anyone that I've finished it. It's been in a lot of ways, very, like a grueling 4-year process. Like, as a one-man person, like, there was a time between jobs when I was, like daily putting in 16 hours. Like, I don't want people to see, like, because there's that temptation, right, of like you see Toby Fox or you see Concerned Ape, and you're like, oh wow, like one person can put together like a really big, really successful game, and I feel pretty confident speaking for them that they would probably not recommend that, like, especially as like an early game. I think Toby Fox had more experience going in. I'm not sure about Concerned Ape with Stardew Valley, but like going in, especially, like, it is hard. It's really hard, and you have to put in a lot of time, and you're gonna have to make sacrifices in what you're doing with your other free time, and I definitely wouldn't recommend like quitting your day job. I work throughout this job I've worked at, or throughout the development of Ocean's Heart, I've worked at Denny's, I've done construction, installed flooring, done some landscaping, went back to school at a coding boot camp, and got a job as like an IT, like a software developer. And those are all like the main thing that I need to do to like live a healthy life. And this has been a nice hobby to do on the side. So I think like if you want to get into games, like keep doing what you're doing first and just like see if you can, throw, 16 hours a week that way and make like in terms of Zelda-likes, make one dungeon, make a section of an overworld that you get 2 items, and don't say like, oh, I'll do this to start. Like, make that the end, so that when you're done with that, you can throw it all out, because there's going to be bad stuff in there. You're learning, which is normal. And just like I think iterating and small projects, because I've sort of done both. I both did Ocean's Heart, which is a pretty big game, as my first project, and then through the course of that also put out 2 like month-long small projects, with the knowledge that I gained from Ocean's Heart to back me up. I think those 2 small projects, in some ways, I was able to learn a lot more because I wasn't tied to the decisions that I made earlier. And I wouldn't, if I wanted to change something, I don't have to go back and change a lot because I've only been working for a month. And I think like those projects, like give yourself a month, be like, oh, maybe I'm not going to watch TV this month or see movies or hang out with friends, and just see what I can do in 1 month. Give yourself a hard end point, both in terms of this is what the game is and this is my time limit. And I think like those sort of things are going to give you a way bigger leg up when, after making maybe, 2, 4, 5 little games, you're like, okay, now I can make a medium game that will balloon into a big game.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's, like I said, my brother's fan game, I say it took 7 years, but it restarted development like 3 or 4 times in there with different engines and like changing scope. And, I rewrote most of the story like probably 2 times as he like changed ideas and wanted new input. And so like, yeah, definitely, especially if you're not, quote unquote, a professional, like if you're not in that field getting paid to do it every day, it's definitely best to rein it in a little bit.
Yes. And like the thing is, like, as much as you think you're reining it in, you aren't reining it in that much. Like, feature creep is such a big thing, right? Like, I'm sure you saw that happen with Matt's game, Book of Madura, that like you can start something small and you'll have cool ideas and you will implement them. It's not going to be as small as you start, ever.
Right. I mean, I even noticed that, like, with my stuff, like I also have a day job and, have been doing YouTube and podcasts and all that stuff for like 5 years now.
Oh, nice.
And like would never advise anyone to like, quit your day job or whatever to do it full time, because it's just not feasible anymore.
Yeah.
But as a hobby, like, it's great if you can make money doing it.
Yeah.
Like, that's just bonus. And for me, like, I work in communications, so it's still kind of, it's job experience in a way, even though I'm not getting paid to do it. Like, it's boosting my resume for work.
Yeah.
So like, you have to think of what you can gain from it outside of just money. Like from a, again, from a game development side, but that's, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I definitely like all these video games are definitely going on my resume if I switch jobs.
Yeah.
Which is yeah, it's fair.
I mean, even if you don't, like, you're still, you're in IT, like, that still looks
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Every once in a while my boss is like, "Hey, so when are you going to be like quitting and becoming a big-time game developer cuz it seems like you're doing really really well out there." And I'm like, "Kevin, no. You guys give me healthcare." Like
Yeah.
game development from everything I hear does not sound like the job I want.
No.
It sounds like the hobby I enjoy, but like the hours and it's not like crazy good pay, and it's I don't know, seems too stressful for me. But just messing around on my own, that's chill.
Yeah, I have a friend in QA, and like he's got he's
Well,
doing
that's
pretty well because like he's with a company that actually takes care of their employees, but the average game development company is not like that. So yeah, you might be better as a one-man team for now.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a friend who worked for a game development studio in Columbus. I hesitate to call it a game development studio because it seemed like more like a scam, because like it was one of those like, oh well, yeah, you'll be paid in rev share at the end when it goes out, and it was just like terribly managed, and like the core concept of the game they were making changed like 3 times over the year I was hearing about it. And they eventually released like, here's a playable demo, and it was after like 2 years, and it was just like nothing. You could walk around a room and interact with stuff barely. And I was just like, ooh, this is a real ass game development studio with like more like it's 5 to 10 employees.
I'm convinced some game development studios are just money laundering schemes. Because like, look at THQ Nordic. They keep buying everything up. What are they releasing?
I don't know. There's so many games I can't keep track. They can just hide.
Exactly. Like, I mean, as long as you seem like you're working on something for a few years, no one pays any attention to where the money's coming and going.
Good theory.
Anyway.
Yeah.
You already kind of answered this, but
I'll answer it twice.
What's next for you?
Honestly, great question. So shortest term, I gotta take off this sweater. My space heater is really working.
Great. Solid answer.
All right, sorry about that. I was walking around in the snow earlier, and I'm wearing like 6 layers still. Yeah. So in the short term, I've got a couple other little projects going on. I just wanted to put together like graphic resources and maybe some sounds and gameplay systems to make Zelda-likes that I could just put together as a system with a little example game that I could release for free to sort of help out anybody else who wanted to go down this path, for better or worse. And just sort of like I really appreciate everyone who's helped me or answered questions online or help me figure out how to write some code. And I feel like I'm pretty good at putting together graphics and okay at putting together systems, and I wanted to get some out there so that anyone could use and just make those available. And that's sort of maybe I'll spend a couple months on that. But outside of that, I got a number of different ideas. Bringing Yarntown into making it its own IP as a full game is one idea, because people seem to really resonate with that. One of my friends from coding school and I were talking about making a sort of like, if you imagine Witchers were still a job but set in Columbus, Ohio in 2021 in the modern day. With like a sort of like city government employee whose job is to go, like rid buildings of red caps or pixies or whatever. We thought that would be fun. Bat together a couple other ideas around like a cowboy game or, but probably still exploring like the sort of within the Zelda-like ish genre, leaning more towards, maybe this is sort of like Hollow Knight-y in a lot of ways, or these brings in a lot of systems from Hyper Light Drifter or Dark Souls, or this one's more story based or puzzle based or whatever. Sort of like taking what I've learned and making small iterations and just sort of keeping that going to really explore the genre. Like we said earlier, we both love Zelda likes, so just make more of them.
Yeah, I don't think there's enough.
I don't think there is either.
Like,
let's saturate the market.
I mean,
for
Nintendo
ourselves.
does a pretty good job with Zelda.
Nintendo's pretty good at Zelda. I'll give them that.
Yeah, they're okay.
But they're not pumping them out.
Right. They're doing better
And
than
I
Metroid,
think,
but you know.
yeah, I mean the last Nintendo produced. So actually, if you think about it, the last Nintendo produced top-down pixel art Zelda game, if I'm thinking this right, was in the 90s. Was Link's Awakening.
Minish Cap.
Right, and then they remade Link's Awakening because Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons were produced by Capcom, and then same with Minish Cap.
Oh, that's true.
And then Cadence of Hyrule was the Necrodancer people.
I think of that as co-developed. I'm sure Nintendo had a hand in it. But...
Yeah, I think I mean, definitely they had a hand in it, but yeah, Minish Cap and the Oracle series were both. I think they were produced by Capcom with Nintendo's some amount of oversight and involvement, but either way, Minish Cap in 2004. It's been what 16, 17 years.
Would you count Four Swords Adventures on GameCube?
Ooh, no, because I forgot about it. I never played it, and it is not easy to find.
I think I still own it.
Oh, well, all right, show off.
Pretty sure. Well, no, my brother and I tried to play it together, like in a past year for like a Zelda month thing.
Oh, nice.
And we didn't realize that the only way you can do multiplayer is with the Game Boy Advance link cable.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So we were kind of screwed before we started. So I have the game, but can only play single player.
Yeah, I think that
So it's still not the same.
I don't think it did super well at the time because of that, because you needed, like $80 worth of peripherals to play it.
Right. But everyone already had that from Crystal Chronicles,
Oh my gosh, yeah, I got like barely into that game, but it was like, oh, you need all this other, your Game Boy Advance link cable. I'm like, I don't have that.
I would have like, BYOC parties with my friends. Like,
bring your own cable.
If you bring a cable, you can play.
Yeah, I remember one time, like a single time, I played Four Swords on the Game Boy Advance because I went over and stayed at someone's house with a link cable.
Mm-hmm.
And it was okay.
That was legit.
Yeah. I mean, good for them for like pushing for that.
I don't know. I really liked the magnet mitt thing that they brought back for the Oracles.
Oh, the magnet gloves?
Yeah, they introduced that item in Four Swords, and I really liked it.
Oh yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun item. It's cool because
my Zelda nerd's coming out.
It fulfills the function of the hook shot. Exactly. It's in its basic function is just to be the hook shot. But then it also has like the secondary function of like now you can manipulate back and forth these big iron balls. And there's those one really annoying enemies that like switch polarity and you can manipulate them with. It's just like a much more functional hook shot that does a lot more.
Yeah.
I thought, yeah, absolutely really clever.
I don't think it would work in 3D for obvious reasons, but like it was refreshing in place of just the boring hook shot.
Yeah, both those Oracle games switched.
And it was better than the Switch hook.
Yeah, the Switch hook. Well, I mean, it just did more than the Switch hook, but the Switch hook, the way it switched, was also cool. There's a
It was okay.
Oh, speaking of Zelda-likes, there's this great in progress game called The Waking Cloak by this Daniel Mueller guy. I follow him on Twitter, and he puts out the way his strategy is so he's working on this Zelda-like game called The Waking Cloak, and as he's been in development, he's been putting out single dungeons at a time that are like sort of like a side story, and each one sort of explores different mechanics as he's developing it. And the first episode is called like the Proto Dungeon. He did a great sort of switch hook kind of item. It's sort of like you shoot out a projectile that will, so the basic iteration is you shoot out a projectile and it hits a pot and boom, you switch places with the pot. But then there's also like mirrors in the dungeon, so you're like shooting it out and it's bouncing off mirrors and you have to like bounce it around to hit the right thing to warp to it. And then you have, an escalation of like, okay, now you can make it turn once after you shoot it. So you're like, okay, I got to bounce off a mirror and then turn down this corridor. And it's just, it's a masterful exploration of just like, here is a single item and here's a short dungeon that just iterates upon, what people praise the Mario games for is like, you give them a mechanic, you do it a twist, and then you escalate on it and test them on that. And he's been putting out these just like short, sweet little dungeons on itch.io that just do that very well. Like a single dungeon, a single item, and just really explore it in a fun way.
Nice. I just wrote that one down. That sounds really cool. Because I think one of the things where, at least like Zelda fan games as far as I've played,
Mm-hmm.
and even like Blossom Tales to an extent, the thing they struggle with the most is really clever puzzles.
Oh, for sure.
Because like you can get the combat, you can get the cool enemy design, things like that, but like that Zelda puzzle design is something that's kind of hard to replicate. And a lot of times I think it's because the items that you get are very similar to Zelda items, so it's like, what else are you gonna do with that thing?
Yeah.
But it sounds like he, introduced some really interesting items that kind of helps to mediate that.
Yeah, and I think that's watching his project and development so far. That seems to be like definitely a strength that his project has that a lot of others don't. Ocean's Art included. Like, puzzles aren't my favorite, and were not what I was focusing on. But I mean, I agree that like, yeah, the puzzles in Ocean's Art aren't Zelda quality strength. I wasn't trying to make them that. I wasn't trying to make a game about puzzles. For me, it's more about the exploration. But that's very insightful. That like, so many of them of what we're doing, it's Zelda's been pumping out item ideas for 30 years going on. So like a lot of the ones you think about have already been covered, and it's just they have a big team coming up with them. So what a lot of people do is a little bit derivative, and therefore the puzzles are going to come pre-solved.
Yeah. I like that phrasing. Yeah. You get in, you're like, oh well, I mean, I've got the bow. It's pretty obvious.
Yep. Yeah, I can't tell you. I mean, there were a number of plays of Ocean's Heart that I saw. One of the items in Ocean's Heart is a sort of like a barrier. So it's like a shield. So you like press the button, it uses a little bit of your magic power, and just like casts a spherical shield around you. And the inspiration there was actually not. This was inspired by Kingdom Hearts. There's like in one of the many spin-offs, like one of the characters, their block move like summons a shield around them. It's like a barrier or something. And it's just like a big spherical shield that deflects attacks and is your block move. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I want to put in one of those. And one of the puzzles I used it with was like, there's 4 switches that you need to hit them really quick because they turn off really quick. And so many people I saw playing were like, obviously I need bombs for this. And I'm like, there's an item in this dungeon that will absolutely just do that. But I also did, to be fair, program it so like, if you want to use bombs for this, that'll work too. I'm not your mom. I'm not telling you how to play.
I actually had bombs and I didn't think to use them.
I wonder if you've also, like me, just been trained by the Zelda formula enough where like, obviously, if I don't immediately know how to solve this with my current items, there will be an item that lets me get through this.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was like, well, I don't have the dungeon item yet, which I don't even know if there were dungeon items, because it's not a Zelda game. Like, it's its own thing. But I kind of figured, since you have an inventory screen, that you probably get a dungeon item.
Yeah.
So I was like,
yeah,
I must have to use that.
In that case, the dungeon item is entirely optional. You can totally complete the game without it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it definitely makes things a lot easier, but that was something that I wanted to encourage, is sort of like whenever optional or whenever possible, make things optional. So like, okay, do you really need this item, or can this just be a fun thing you discover? And if you miss it, well, I mean, that's fine, because that sort of makes when you do discover it even more rewarding. Because no one's stopping you from progressing until you find it. It's more on your own. Like, you've more made the decision to go seek it out and come across it. And I think that's a fun way to be more rewarding of exploration and to encourage it.
Do you think that makes some of the items kind of trivial because you don't need them, and so you feel yourself not using them once you have them?
Oh yeah, that is absolutely a downside. Like, and one that I do think is inherent to that choice. Like, at its core, like in this sort of action RPG genre, whenever an item is more than just a kind of tool, so like in an action RPG like The Witcher, you can get an infinite number of swords, but they're all just a sword, so there's that far spectrum where or in Breath of the Wild, people hated this. Like, you find a new sword, it's meaningless. It does the same thing of your other swords, and it's, it's not as good a reward because it's not unique. And then on the far other end of the spectrum, are things like, I mean, the hook shot is what I and a lot of other people, I'm sure, think is, one of our favorite items in Zelda. because it is a very specific item that has a lot of different use cases. Like now you can hook shot across gaps. Now you can use it to stun enemies. Now you can reach all other kinds of blocks. You can sort of use it to dodge out of the way of things. And there's a bunch of puzzles, all throughout the world that are like, now this is a key that unlocks all these things to me. And sort of wherever an item can fall somewhere on that spectrum of like, is this a key that unlocks a lot of things, down to, this is just like, this is absolutely unimportant that I get this because it's just like something else I already have. And so the further you go towards this is a key that unlocks many things, is sort of like the closer you are towards making it mandatory. So like trying to strike that balance of with your optional items, will you use them to unlock optional areas? And I think that's a valid way to do it. And I would consider that sometimes of like, oh cool, like I found this optional what's some of the optional items in my game? Like here's a fire arrows. In Ocean's Heart you can come across fire arrows later, and that's totally optional. So like how many places am I going to put in the game where like, fire arrows are the thing that unlocks this? Because the more and more I put into them, the more and more I'm locking people who don't want to go seek them out of more and more content. So where I sort of fell for Ocean's Heart was like, all the optional items, I want them to be fully optional. Like I don't want you to not be able to get into some caves without, some like cave with a puzzle and a treasure unless you have this item. I think that's a valid way of doing it, but I sort of wanted to make everything available to everyone, and these will just sort of enhance the way you do combat or enhance the way you travel around. So like you can still do everything without these items, but they just sort of give you another alternate path. But it definitely does have downsides of, because it doesn't let you do things you couldn't do before. It just lets you do things in a way you couldn't do them before. There definitely is. Yeah, it does make them less. What was the word you said? Like less important or less validating?
Trivial, I think is the.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are more trivial.
It makes them feel trivial. Yeah. Because I like kind of to that point, I think of going back to Axiom Verge. Like, there's a lot of like beam weapons you get in that game, and I think like at least half of them aren't actually needed at any point. And there's a few like you can't even get all of them in one run of the game.
Yeah.
Because they're in like special glitch areas or whatever. But like having them gives you like, one shoots entirely diagonally and like another one is like close range but has a wide spread. And so it's like, they give you different ways to attack enemies. And since the combat is kind of hard, you're encouraged to switch it up and find the weapon that is best against different enemies, even though you don't have to. You can go through the whole game with like whatever's strongest.
Yeah, I think that's clever.
So yeah, there's definitely a merit to that.
Yeah, like the more that they change gameplay, like one of the sweet spots, I'm not going to say like this is the sweet spot to hit, but one of the sweet spots you can hit is exactly that of like, this very much changes the way that you do routine tasks, but you can still do the same task in your old way. And I think that is definitely a cool thing to aim for.
Because I don't see why anyone would strive to just, like, have boring combat. It's like, well, you don't have to use this. You can just go through the whole game with just your sword. It's like, but why?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, providing people options. Like, Ocean's Heart, you can't go through with just the sword, but you can do all the combat with just your sword. I don't like to play it that way because, that's kind of more boring. But but I can't force you to use arrows. I think Hyperlight Drifter also did it a good way, like Axiom Verge does. Like I think all of their items are optional guns, which like this one's more of a shotgun, this one's more of a sniper rifle, and that you sort of change. It's like changes up your battle strategy basically. Maybe the next game I make that takes some of influence from Hyperlight Drifter, because I always thought it would. I was expecting there to be more swords too, like this sword is slower but powerful. Or this sword is, longer range but does less damage or whatever.
I was expecting Hyperlight Drifter to just be more like a Zelda game. It's kind of not.
Yeah, it is. It is more different than I was expecting from the reviews too.
Yeah, but anyway, just real quick. The first like little, I guess you'd even call it like a mini boss in that tutorial dungeon at the start of the game. Like my first death in the game was because I dropped in, wherever you drop in that cave and find like the boss that she makes like a snarky comment about. And I was like, when I did this for my test, I just threw pots at it and killed it. I don't want to use my sword against it. So like I kept trying to pick up pots and he kept hitting me and I died because I didn't want to use my sword to kill him. It's like it's fun to play things in a different way, even if it makes it more difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you're like determined, like, all right, I'm gonna knock her into that puddle of water, then yep, also valid strategy too.
Exactly. It's like you play Dark Souls games, you know, sometimes it's artificial challenge, like where you just make it more hard for yourself because it's more fun.
That's not the way I play Dark Souls games. I don't need that extra challenge on top of like Sekiro.
Oh, okay. I don't really play them, but I figure, you know, I've seen like the people that beat Dark Souls games with like a DDR pad, so I
oh my gosh,
just assume
yeah.
that's how the fan base works.
No, those people are maniacs.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, like I love Bloodborne, and I'm doing well, I mean, I say I love it. I'm doing my second playthrough now. I mean, I guess I love it, but I have a less maybe a less quantitative relationship with video games than a lot of people do. But I have no desire to make it harder. I was just like, oh, that was quite challenging. I'm fine with that where it is.
Yeah, I almost never play games on hard mode or anything because I just want to enjoy it. Like, what's the point in making yourself angry playing a video game?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of times you never, like, if you just like you're at the beginning of the game and you see a hard mode setting, you're like, there is a good chance this is just going to make it you know, grueling and tedious rather than like meaningfully more challenging.
Especially for your first playthrough.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to enjoy the game as much then.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, hard mode settings are definitely a whole, you know, podcast episode on their own or whatever about like, cause like, how do you even know going in? Like, I always set it on whatever it recommends, but like a lot of games I'm like, that was kind of way too easy, and I find myself like not needing to use the more complicated skills or strategies because just like I can beat everything with pretty basic techniques, like in Assassin's Creed or Horizon Zero Dawn were that way. And I probably could have benefited from going on hard mode, but how would I have known that at the beginning of the game when I said it?
Yeah, and not all hard modes are created equally either.
For sure. Yeah.
Anyway, I feel like, you know, we should probably come to an end here, even though I'm enjoying the conversation. But I don't want to take up your whole night. I do have one more thing. I brought it up during the gameplay, so I'm sure you'll see that eventually. But I was told that you don't really have a bestiary or anything for your enemies in the Ocean's Heart.
No.
And that they have just kind of like, you know, basic like code names or whatever for each one.
Yep.
Have you ever do you have like actual names for them? Like, have you thought about like giving fun names, like kind of, you know, the bats in Zelda or Keese, that kind of thing?
For a lot of them I have, so the like their names are a mix. A lot of them are like troll thing, spider, or rocks. I some, you know, like just like its basic function, I didn't really care. Some of them have like rock spiders. I think some of the NPCs in the game reference them. And then some of them, when they're more like lore connected, like, you know, you'll fight a ghost and they might be like, oh, this is like the restless spirit of a bear warrior, and like I know that. I guess there's no way for a player to know that or something. But I have for this game, I'm sort of like, you know, I gotta draw the line somewhere, and adding in sort of like a bestiary or any way to officially communicate the sort of lore behind the enemies is just sort of out of scope of what I can do as just like me.
Yeah, I just didn't know if, like, you know, since you created all the sprites and stuff, if you kind of had like loving nicknames for any of them, or if it's just kind of like I needed to create something.
Oh, that's a good question. Let me pull up the code and see if I can find some good ones. As long as, you know, we're not streaming, with the power of editing, you can wait for me. Exactly.
But just as an example, like while we were playing, there was like these kind of like almost skeletal like crow things. And like I kept asking my brother, I was like, you know, is there a name for these? Like, is there, you know, these are a pretty cool design. And he's like, I think they're just called like crows or something. And I was like, no, they're sculptures.
Oh, sculptures is really good. I like that.
Right? Like, you can have that
if
one.
If it wouldn't totally break the code, I would just rename the file now into sculptures. But
yeah, I was trying to think of others, but like nothing beats sculptures.
Yeah, no, Matt is right. They are just called crows in the code.
Okay.
Well, even though obviously, like, something up with that's not what a crow looks like.
No. It is what a sculpture looks like, though.
This is true. A lot of the plant-like enemies are, when I was coming up with them, I conceived them as arborgeists, which I thought was a fun term. Which actually came from, I was when I was working in landscaping at one point during development, and was working at we had a job somewhere, and I just heard the name of the client offhand. It was like Julia Arborgeist, and I was like Arborgeist, like tree ghost, and they're like, oh, yeah, I guess so. And I was like, that's so cool. So I was like, I'm putting Arborgeist in the game.
That is pretty
cool. One that's fun is, so there's a couple like rock enemies in the game that you'll find, like I think you can find some up on like Marble Cliff Mountain. And there's like big ones and little ones. The big ones are called Boulder Bros, and the little ones are called Gravel Guys.
Cute.
So you've got some of those. You've got some like names like that in there. Let's see, rock spiders, sea hags. A sea hag is the code, is in the name in the code for the that mini boss at the beginning.
Okay.
So there's like some fire things that are just will-o-wisps, sort of the general name. There's one that in the code is just called a Zora because it behaves like a Zora.
Wow. I mean, I know you basically have Dekus, but at least you didn't call them that.
Yeah, so those are called so there's the ones that jump out and get you, which I called mandrakes. I heard someone on a stream call them ambushes, and
that's really good.
So good. And then
oh man,
almost all of the bosses have like official in lore, in canon, in universe lore names. So
because they probably are like that name is said at some point.
No, it's just for me.
Oh.
You've got like, so there's like the Abyss Beast, which like I know his whole deal and I know all the lore behind him, and it's hinted at in some places if you make some connections, but not really there. Or like Blackbeard, that one is pretty obvious or given. There's like a ghost mini boss that you can fight by lighting all of the ancient lighthouses around. You'll summon a ghost ship and can do battle with a ghost on there. And that is Zephrine, who is a character in the lore and like is mentioned in like some old books and on some old like obelisks. I don't have like the like Zelda or Dark Souls does, where it like tells you the name of the boss when you're fighting, but you can piece together probably that's Zephrine. Or you fight Ophira on Faikunos Island. A couple of them are a little more goofy. The mini boss that you fight at the end of the like chain of shipwrecks at the Pirate Council's headquarters, his name in the code is Assassin Beard.
Wow.
I think I gave him a name in the game though.
Okay. See, I was just thinking of like the end of Super Mario World, when like it does the credits and it shows you all of like the creatures and their names. Like you don't know them otherwise, but like they're there. They have names.
That would be a fun way to do it. I have probably 30 times more enemies than people in the credits because it was a pretty small operation.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm curious, but I like that world building stuff. Like I said, I mostly help my brother with like story stuff for his game. So that's kind of where my head is at.
No,
I'm not I don't
idea.
understand game development, but I like story stuff.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorite things in your game is all the the writing around, like you said, the stuff that you can just kind of find out, but you don't have to know. Like I like the personality you put into the different letters and things like that are hanging on the walls. It just adds a nice touch to the world.
Oh, thank you. That's
kind of where
Yeah, I think definitely at some point. If I do, like me and my friend have been spitballing this like game where you basically play a Witcher, but it's part of the city government and set in the modern day. Like I would definitely have a lot of fun doing a bestiary in there. And I think, agreed. Like those little, like the little snippets that you can get from a bestiary of like, just the fact that like, what do people call this tells you a lot about those people.
Yeah.
Like, and like, how do people like, what is, like just like to us, like with our mythology in real life, that like, a sphinx we know as to be like a wise creature and like associated with riddles because of, the stories that have been told about it. Like when you have a sculpture, like, like, oh, you can probably tell why people named it that, but like, okay, what does that mean to people? Like, is that a sign of, is that a sign of ill omen? Are they like pests, like rats? Like, how do people perceive them? And that can tell you so much about the world, and is really fun to think about.
See, like, for me, like, when I used to make RPG Maker games and stuff, like, they never made it very far, but it would start with the idea. Like, I would, like, write a little short story or something, and then I'd be like, okay, how can I make this into a game? And that's where it would fall apart. So, like, I lead with, names of things and concepts and all that, and then when it comes to game development, I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah, but I mean, like, if you're just doing it as a hobby, like, nothing wrong with that. Come up with an idea, start to make a game, let it fall apart. If you had fun with that, great. That was a success.
True. Yeah. That's why I make YouTube videos instead, because make those ideas in other ways.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's just like so many different ways of mediums. Like you said, you do podcasts. I had one of those for a while, and that was also like, it's like a very different way of telling a story. Especially we were doing sort of like one of those D&D podcasts where it's a collaborative improv story. And so, like, it's very different, especially when, like, someone else has a left field idea and you're like, all right, I guess this is what we're doing. I guess we're using a fire elemental to make soup or whatever. Like, and then that derails and does a whole story arc. But then you're also, like, making plans of, like, well, what is the bad guy's plan? So I was, like, working with the DM because she and I collaborated on writing projects in the past. And, like, it's another medium of, like, if you like telling stories and you, like, have ideas that you want to share, like, you can just... whatever medium gets those off your chest that you have fun with is valid.
Yeah, exactly. Just put ideas into the world. Like, it doesn't matter how. I mean, maybe make sure it's legal, but put the ideas out there.
Yeah, as long as they're good ideas. If you're putting in like bad, hurtful, mean ideas, stop. And part 2, get off my Steam page.
Well, that felt real.
Nah, that was just a dig.
It's okay.
One person who's literally, I had some dude on Steam was literally doing like the cliche of just like going into every comment and being like lazy devs, and I'm like, do people actually say lazy devs? I thought that was just a cliche about what people would complain about, but it's real.
Yeah,
I found it very funny.
I mean, I still see like the dead game comments on random things, so I'm sure there's those people that just only have like 3 words in their vocabulary and they're all mean.
It seems like.
But yeah, if you ever want to start up a D&D podcast again, hit me up. Just saying.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, it was a ton of work, and I would definitely need to restructure to figure out how to do it with less than 12 hours a week put into the editing process. But
oof, yeah. I mean, do it as a live stream. Then you don't have to worry about editing.
But I don't know if I would like that product.
I know. There's a quality difference there. You probably listen to the Glass Cannon podcast, huh? They're all perfectionists, too.
Glass Cannon? No, I haven't heard of that one.
They mostly do Pathfinder, but...
Okay.
They have that similar mentality of, like, if it's not perfect, I'm not going to put it out.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, perfection isn't, like... I mean, perfection is definitely something I don't necessarily think is fun to strive towards. And like in that, so like there's a lot of this kind of podcast going around right now. You've got like those like those Critical Role guys are like super huge, right? They're like making millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And like Not Another D&D podcast is a bigger one I've heard. My favorite is Dungeons and Daddies. I don't know if you've heard that one.
Yeah, my brother told me about it. I don't know if he got it from you or not. But, yeah.
I don't think so. I don't think I know that he liked that, but I will geek out about that with him because my God, it's so good. Like there's a lot of those.
I certainly listen. I'm at home all the time, so I don't listen to podcasts right now.
Oh, I sometimes specifically go on long drives to nowhere just to listen to a podcast. I'll just like hop in the car and be like, new episode's out. I'm gonna go drive around the country, and or countryside, but yeah, like a lot of times those those rough edges and those like bad decisions that people make, and those like yo, you know what? This didn't go anywhere. They're really funny, and that's where the character is. Like the overproduction can really peel away from the heart of it. But then there's other ones that I've listened to where I'm just like, oh, you're just like four dudes playing a D&D and you don't even know this is a pod. It seems like you don't even aware that this is a podcast. And it's sort of like, hey, what am I doing here? Why did you put this out in the world? This is not for me. You aren't making this for an audience.
It bugs me when the audio quality isn't the same. Like when one person's clearly just like on a laptop mic and everyone else has like professional stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I have infinitely more patience with that, this past year. But
oh yeah.
But yeah,
Sure.
when it's you gotta I'm gonna if you want me to listen to, I do have definitely a threshold where I'm like, you gotta put in this much effort and this much professionalism. And then I still want to see you mess up and make mistakes because I want you to be a real person and not, like not a weird. If I'm listening to a professional podcast, I'm going to turn on like, Serial or Reply All or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. Well, now that this podcast about podcasts is over.
Yeah, we can nerd about a podcast I could probably go a lot longer on podcasts. Love those also. But this is about game design ostensibly.
Yeah. So yeah, any final thoughts or anything to put out in the world?
I mean, no, I don't have any particular. Final thoughts about my game is a weird. I am constantly thinking about it and second guessing things and being like, how could I make this better? Maybe that'll work in the next game. I don't know. Any final thoughts you have
about your game
or final questions? Yeah, final questions for me or.
I think I covered all my questions, but
I'm just you just sort of threw the onus on my side of the volleyball net, and I'm like, no, nope, return.
Hey, you're the one that said you like talking about yourself. I was just giving you the opportunity.
Let me just do I have any sort of here? I'll do the podcast host thing. So Max, do you have any? Thanks for joining us. Do you have any plugs or anything you want people to hit up? Oh yeah. Thanks, Justin. So you can follow me at 11 Mraz on Twitter. So Ocean's Heart's on Steam. Just search Steam or GOG for Ocean's Heart. And I got a couple more games on itch.io. Which is maxatrillionator.itch.io. You can search for Hollow's Eve or Yarntown and get into my au revoir that way.
This is a family podcast?
Yarntown's a totally free game that you can get a little taste at, no risk.
Nice. For the record, that was going to be my next thing.
Oh, okay, cool. I misread the room.
No, it's cool.
I did this before. I was talking with the guys from The Escapist, and I totally thought they were like doing cool, this is the out, and I was like, cool, freeze frame on the stream. We committed to like a freeze frame, like the end of an 80s movie, and the other guy was like, oh, I actually had another question, and we were like, oh fuck, but we're committing to the bit. It's a freeze frame. Oh, it was really embarrassing. Okay, never mind.
Cool, name drop The Escapist like that.
No, I don't really have any other final thoughts. My thoughts are scattered and, very unorganized, so I wouldn't know how to label any of them final.
Okay. What would your final meal be?
Ooh, much better question.
Not a threat. I'm just.
Much better question. So weird thing about me, I don't really like food that much. I eat so that I can have enough energy to get back to doing whatever else I was doing. But assuming this is my final meal, there's really nothing else I'm doing afterwards, so I'm totally lost in a drift. It's just like, I don't eat that way, man. But I feel like I'd go back to, it's like, one more, you gotta go back to the classics. You don't want to get decadent, like, just do what you've been doing. Maybe like a breakfast sandwich.
My final meal would depend on how I was being killed.
Why?
Well, like, if it was like electric chair, I would try to do something that's like, insulation. I would try to trick the system.
Oh, okay, all right. So, what are you gonna eat that's going to be that's gonna stop you from getting electrocuted? So a hose, rubber gloves.
I'm not in jail or anything, so I haven't had time to do the research.
Okay,
but
I feel like I don't even need to do the research. I'm just gonna say flat out, there is nothing you can eat that will prevent electrocution, other than like a potion from a video game.
agree to disagree.
All right. Say this is in the Marvel movie, and they're gonna throw you off a big cliff for a jewel. What do you eat then?
Oh, okay, the Soulstone. Got it. I was like, what? A jewel?
I don't remember the movie very well.
I would eat as much as possible to try to immediately put on enough fat to bounce.
Huh. I do. We're gonna, like you said, agree to disagree. Don't think that would work, but it was great talking to you. So thanks for coming on my show. Thanks for dropping by. So you're the developer of Ocean's Heart. Again, you can find that on Steam, guys. Justin's game is Ocean's Heart, or GOG.
It's been great. Thank you for having me, Justin.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming on, Max.
This is weird. All right.
All right, cool.